I'd like to bring this meeting of the Comox Valley Sewage Commission to order, and we are here on Tuesday, April 9th in the Regional District Boardroom. Welcome to Commission members and staff. I'll acknowledge that we have Captain Oom from CFB Comox online, along with some other staff members, and pleased to welcome Director Hardy from Area B to the table with us today. I'll remind everyone that Director Hardy has voice, but not vote. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that we're meeting on the unceded territory of the Comox First Nation, the traditional keepers of this land. And our first item of business is the resolution status report dated April 24th. A motion for receipt, please. Moved by Cole Hamilton, seconded by McCollum. Is there any discussion? Is there anyone opposed? That is carried, and we'll move on to item 1 under reports, the Sewage Management Advisory Committee minutes dated March 28th. The motion for receipt, please. Moved by McCollum, seconded by Swift. Any discussion? Is there anyone opposed to receipt? That is carried. And item number 2, Sandy Dump, next steps, a report dated April 3rd. A motion for receipt, please. Moved by Grant, seconded by McCollum. Would staff like to make any comment on this?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'd like to introduce Mark Rutten, General Manager of Engineering Services. And I think, Mark, you've got a brief presentation for the Commission.
Yes, thanks to the CEO and through the chair. Just a short summary here. The CBRD has received a response from the City of Courtenay that at this time they do not have the staff capacity to review the Dove Creek Sandy Dump proposal in time for summer 2024. The Dove Creek location has been recommended following an extensive review of possible locations, including some consultation with the private sector. The proposed location at Dove Creek Place meets many of the required criteria for a sandy dump. However, some additional due diligence and review is still required. As such, this report recommends that CBRD staff pause work on this initiative until the city is able to allocate municipal staff capacity to assess the site. And I'm available to answer any questions that you might have on this report.
Questions or comments from Commission members? Director McCollum.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to have a better understanding of like what the next steps are, and specifically from the 2 seats that I occupy, in that we've heard from our staff at the City of Courtenay that there's not enough capacity to do this in the short term. But is there dialogue ongoing between the 2 organizations, or is this something that that there's an expectation that the members of both the City of Courtenay and the Sewage Commission needs to bring this back in some way, or will it come back in its own course without further direction from the board?
Yeah, I think what we heard when Chris and I met with the city was that it was really more of a timing issue than a location issue. So I think that the advisory committee meets every month. In a few months, or 3 or 4 months, whatever is reasonable, we can bring this item forward again, get an idea of whether capacity has freed up. I understand that the summer is a very busy time with some of the new provincial requirements that will come out around housing, and so I think we're anticipating that maybe in the fall capacity will come available again, and we can restart the discussions on this particular location. But I haven't checked in with the city on that, but that's kind of my impression.
Okay, that's helpful. Thanks for that.
I don't see any further comments. I think what I'll add to that is that reading between the lines, I think that there is a fair amount of hesitation on the city's part, not just with regards to the timing, but I think there are reservations regarding the location. So I would strongly encourage there to be some dialogue at the advisory committee to clarify that. And I think it might be helpful for staff from the regional district to ask city staff directly if in fact they think that is a good location that and that they would see themselves being able to work on later on down the line. Over to Director Grant.
Yeah, thank you. So I think Melanie was talking about this last time, and I'm a little confused why we would do this at the sewer commission unless we're just actually getting this up to speed and then going to pass it on to the larger board. I don't know what the cost of this would be to our town and to the city of Courtenay, but it seems like those two communities should not be bearing the cost of this when everybody is going to use it. So I think somewhere along the line, we have to reconcile that as well.
Yeah, interesting point. I did have it suggested to me that since this was in many ways a tourism function, we refer it to the tourism organization and consider locating the service at the visitor center with a tank placed there of some sort. I don't know whether that was one of the options that might have been explored or not. But Director Hardy.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I know I've personally been wielding a lot of questions and concerns from not just constituents from Area B, but also from the town of Comox and the city of Courtenay saying, we have great concerns here. Like, you know, there's no place to dump our heads here. So we're in a bit of a critical situation here. What I see is people just outright just dumping their heads down the storm drain, and then we run into problems there too, right? So I think we need to come up with a short-term solution and long-term solution, but we better do it quick. Thanks.
I think the position of our staff would be that a short-term solution would involve either the city or the town, given their access to the actual sewer systems. Although I don't know whether a temporary location with some type of holding tank has been explored or not. Mark, do you have any comments on anything that you've heard so far?
Yeah, so we had developed a list of siting criteria, you know, so there were factors like queuing length and, you know, traffic safety, that sort of thing. And one of the criteria that we had developed was that we needed a connection to the sewage system. So that's not to say that a holding tank is not possible, but in the locations that we've looked at, we've tried, well, one of the internal criteria was that it would be connected to the Comox Valley sewer system and treated at the Comox Valley Water Pollution Control Center. And we just felt that that was effective, efficient, didn't require the transportation. You know, a tank, like depending on its size, could fill up quickly, and moving the contents of the tank is the tricky part. You can put in a large tank to accommodate a lot of RVs, but then you know, everyone's familiar with the size of a septic hauling truck. That's what would be used to move the material to the treatment plant. And, you know, that would add up pretty quickly, I think, although we have not studied it, so.
Director Kerr.
Thank you. And I really, you know, appreciate the staff capacity issue, our town staff, City of Courtenay staff, CVRD staff as well. And I guess, you know, it's always going to be busy, and it's all like housing and all of these reports and such that are coming in this summer and the work that's going to be done this fall. My worry is on this issue is that, you know, we'll be sitting here around this time next year and we'll be scrambling to get something up and running for 2025 summer. So the recommendation as it stands that we pause further work and that we wait till there's more staff capacity, it feels a little bit too open-ended to me. And I was wondering if there's a way, or if it would be helpful to staff to have something in there that says, you know, with the intent of having a site up and running for summer 2025. Would that give it a little bit more meat on the bone to keep the fires burning, or would that be a hindrance to staff?
Mr. Warren.
I think anytime you have a deadline or a time frame, it certainly helps to maintain a focus on that particular topic. as Mark mentioned, with the criteria and that importance of connecting into the collection system, not the transmission mains, which is what the Sewage Commission has responsibility for. The importance of connecting into the collection systems is really critical in our view. So the work has to be done in partnership with municipalities. And by putting a timeline on this, it certainly keeps it more active with the advisory. I've committed to continue dialogue with the City of Courtney CAO as well. So it does provide us with that more direct attention around a timeframe. It doesn't change much of the struggles that we're facing, I don't think, but it gives us that attention to the time.
Director Swift?
Thank you. I would really support a timeline. This discussion has been going on for years now, and I know with the conveyance project, it's kind of taken a back seat, but I think it is an important one to recreational users. And I've often thought that the Driftwood Mall area would be a good spot, and I don't know if that one has been seriously considered.
We don't actually have a report on file that indicates all the sites that have been checked out. So we do have this kind of ongoing discussion about what about here, what about there. Mark, perhaps you can elaborate.
Yeah, I can't say whether or not the Driftwood Mall's been considered. It's private property, so it would require, our initial look was to look for road right-of-ways or government-owned roads that we could use that were close to the infrastructure required. So, we looked, for example, along Ryan Road. There's a wide, very wide right-of-way right over top of the Greenwood Trunk that could have been used, but ended up getting ruled out because the province wouldn't allow the use of that particular right of way. So, we tried to focus on areas and locations that are within the control of either the regional district or the municipalities. We also did a very quick kind of I can't remember the proper term, but we did speak to some private entities that we thought would be a good host for such a facility, and got a pretty cold reception from them. So, tiny bit of a market sounding there. And then we settled in on the Dove Creek place, which rose to the top pretty quickly through the criteria that we had. So, we haven't, we've looked at a dozen or so places. We've ruled them out for one reason or another. Got one that rose to the top, so that's kind of, and this work has happened over, like you said, quite a long period of time, like 4 years or so, where we've focused in on a few locations, worked with the advisory, ruled them out for whatever reason, and then focused in on a couple of others. So that's kind of the way it's gone.
Director Cole Hamilton.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think the point you made it just a minute ago, that there isn't a list that's been circulated yet of the dozen or so locations. I think that would be, if I don't think it probably requires change the recommendation, but it'd be very helpful, I think, for members of this committee to have that information, so we're not having these kinds of did you think about that, did you think about that conversations. And I also just wanted to confirm that I assume that the staff at the City of Courtney and the town of Comox have been given a list like that, so then I'm also in the same position of wondering what's been I just think that circulating that information as working off the same page is probably a very good start to this kind of 1 year timeline of getting it in place by spring of 2025.
Thanks for that. One of the other suggestions that came up was contacting the private recreational sites. There's several in the area that have facilities to see if there could be some type of incentive for them to provide their facilities to the public. Other than that, we're aware that Miracle Beach Provincial Park is the closest site, and it might be helpful to hear from staff what the penalties are for people who discharge into areas such as Director Hardy noted, rather than drive out there. But we'll go to Director Cole Hamilton first.
I guess I should have just made my sort of the end of my statement. I guess those were kind of questions. I was wondering if it is possible for staff to confirm that they could shared that list with us of the locations that are being looked at. And just, I guess, also confirm that I assume city and town staff have had that same information, just so that everyone does have that. So it'd be great to get just reply on that.
Over to you, Mark.
Yeah, I can confirm that the city and town have been consulted on each of the locations. In terms of a report, we can provide a staff report back summarizing the locations that have been investigated and ruled out for the reasons why.
The one thing perhaps we haven't done is issue some type of press release indicating the need for something, to see if there is anyone in the private sector who would in fact be willing to host this. I know that there was some inquiries made through one of our alternate directors with Walmart, which yielded no results. Director Kerr.
Thanks, Chair. I'm just wondering if it would be helpful at this point for me to suggest a slight amendment to the recommendation after the word criteria that states with the intent of a sandy dump be operational in summer of 2025. For the summer of 2025.
You're proposing that as an amendment?
Yes.
Is there a seconder? Oh, sorry, we're still on receipt, so we'll do dispose of receipt and move on to that. Is there anyone opposed to receipt? That's carried. We'll take Director Kerr's amendment as having been moved. And I believe you seconded it, Director Grant? Did you? Or someone?
Second.
Director Swift seconded, and we'll just clarify that Lisa has the wording. Okay, would you like to say it one more time, Director Kerr?
I'll do my best. So after the word criteria in the first paragraph, with the intent of having an operational sandy dump up and running by summer 2025.
Thanks for that. I think the wording is fairly clear, even if we can't see it right now, but although I know some people are better visual than auditory. Is there any further discussion on this amendment? Is there anyone opposed? Now that we see it in black and white? Is there anyone opposed to the amendment? Okay, that is carried. We're back on the main motion. Further discussion?
That can actually.
Oh, okay. Right. The motion as amended is carried, and we don't need to go back to the original. Thanks very much for that. All right, and it sounds like staff has been also asked to provide some additional detail. James, do we need a motion on that, or are you okay with the?
I think we're okay to pull together that report that looks at the previous locations that were looked at and provide that to the Sewage Commission in due course. I think that's pretty straightforward.
Okay, thanks very much. Thanks everyone for your patience on this item. So we'll move on to item number 3, the Sewer Extension South Final Draft Liquid Waste Management Plan Addendum. We have a report dated March 28th for a receipt. A motion, please. Moved Grant, seconded Swift, and over to staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Derry Monteith, our manager of liquid waste planning, will be presenting this report and supported by Vince Van Tongeren. But Derry, over to you.
Thank you, through the chair. I'd also like to recognize Andrew Gower, who's in the gallery today, who is the chair of our PACTAC for the addendum. So the purpose of this report, as James said, is to present the final draft stage 1-2 LWMP addendum for the Sewer Extension South project for the Commission's consideration. The addendum process has allowed for consideration of the Sewer Extension South project within the overall Comox Valley Sewer Service LWMP. And the graphic shown here illustrates how these two processes fit together. Submittal of the addendum report to the province will mark the conclusion of the addendum process. And then these two processes will then be combined for stage 3, and the Sewer Extension South project will be further advanced in that stage 3 plan. So as you may recall, a preliminary draft of the addendum report was presented to the Commission in December of 2023, where there was support to move forward with next steps for public engagement. In January 2024, additional public engagement activities, including a webinar and 2 public open houses, took place. And the final stage 1 environmental impact study has also been completed, which includes consideration for both phase 1A and B of the project. And the final draft addendum report has been completed now, including revisions to reflect the final EIS. The last combined PAC-TAC meeting was held on March 14th, where committee members supported advancing the addendum report to the steering committees for approval, but also requested consideration of the hydrological impacts of diversion of water from local septic fields be included in the report. So this slide provides an overview of our public engagement efforts on this project from 2021 to 2024. 2021 was our first open house following the Commission's decision to receive Area A wastewater and the subsequent work done to pursue a regional sewer solution. The community has been really actively engaged in this project with high attendance at in-person open houses and webinars, and really healthy website traffic as well. And the numbers shown here for web traffic are from the engagement platform, which was launched in May of 2023. So the January 2024 engagement events, as I said, included 2 open houses and a webinar. The invitation to these events encouraged residents to view the draft addendum report on the engagement page, and also included an info sheet summarizing project details to date. There were 9 key themes that we heard about during this last round of engagement, and I've summarized here the top 6. And similar to the last events, cost concerns remain the top issue for residents in the area. So the main themes included, as I said, continued concerns about high costs for residents and questions about how costs are broken down per property. It's clear that residents are becoming familiar with project information, and there was more certainty and understanding about which phase each residents are located in and the overall project boundaries. There is general support for the project's completion and encouragement by residents to complete it as quickly as possible. There were fewer comments and questions at these events about overall project plans, but we did receive more questions and comments about specific details like pump station and pipe locations and connections to individual homes. So all of the feedback from the January events has been compiled into a What We Heard report, which has now been shared with the community and will also be included as part of the addendum report that will be submitted to the province. So the draft addendum report summarizes the work completed to date for the Sewer Extension South project. The development of the addendum includes defining the South Region Plan area, regulatory requirements and design criteria, developing a system overview and phasing, evaluating conveyance and collection system options, and developing a preliminary design and cost estimates, holding technical and public advisory committee and steering committee meetings that happened at strategic points to present materials and obtain committee feedback and input, completing substantial public engagement to obtain input from the community at large, and completing First Nations consultation. Changes from the draft report that was presented at the December meeting are relatively minor. The most substantive changes really relate to the additional information provided in that updated Stage 1 EIS with the inclusion of Phase 1B. And with this update to the EIS, the anticipated impacts and overall risk for the project are still low, and it's believed that they will be able to be effectively managed through best management practices and mitigation measures implemented by a QEP. So the other changes to the addendum report, as noted here, include updated collection system maps that correspond with the maps used at the most recent open houses, as well as updates to the consultation section to include the most recent committee meetings and public engagement. So as I already noted, the last addendum PAC-TAC meeting on March 14th, the committee members supported advancing the addendum report to the steering committee, but requested consideration of hydrological impacts of the diversion of water from local septic fields be included in the report prior to it being finalized. Staff support this additional work, but recommend that it be submitted to the province during the review process for inclusion in the report so as not to delay the process. And at this last PAC-TAC meeting, the committee also recommended 3 electoral area A resident representatives to be appointed to the combined Stage 3 LWMP Public Advisory Committee. So subject to approval today by the Commission, acting as the Plan Steering Committee, as well as the Board, the addendum report will be submitted to the province for review in May of 2024. Also on the work plan for 2024 is initiation of detailed design for the project as part of the Stage 3 planning process, as well as the first Stage 3 PAC-TAC meeting, which is currently anticipated for the fall of this year. So today we are asking for the Commission to approve the Sewer Extension South Addendum Report so that it may be submitted for provincial review. And we're also asking for the Commission's support for inclusion of the additional work requested by the PAC-TAC, but that this work be submitted to the province during the review process. And with that, I welcome any questions on the report. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Derry. As clear and worthwhile as when I heard it yesterday. And I'd like to acknowledge that Area A Director Daniel Arbor is with us in the gallery today. And obviously, this is a key issue for Area A. And it's good that we have the representation here. And we have Director McCollum.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks for the report. I just had one question around a paragraph in page 6 in the staff report that highlights that that the per connection cost estimate is $1,200 to $1,500 per connection, which is lower than I expected, and that's I would assume good news for the residents of Area A. And but then when I was looking at the attached report, there's a table, table 12, that lists the connection costs differently. And I'm wondering if this $1,200 to $1,500 only applies to one part of their connection fees. I'm just wondering why there's a discrepancy. I'm just trying to find, actually, I think it was like 3,500 to 12,000 or something in the table in the report. So if you could just explain what the two different sets of numbers are explaining.
Yeah, certainly through the chair. So the 1,200 to 1,500 estimate is for the borrowing required to complete the capital works for the project. So that would be included on residents' property tax bills annually. The other costs that residents will incur relate to kind of on-property works. So the cost in connecting their home to the sewer line. And we've provided a range of cost estimates for information in the report, but those will vary greatly depending on the property and the configuration of the home, the size of the property, et cetera. And you'll also probably see some estimates for operation and maintenance costs also in the addendum report, which will also need to be paid by residents once connected.
Okay, so just to summarize then, the 12 to 1,500 is actually an annual cost, not a connection cost, but that represents the borrowing for the conveyance, but not the operations of the sewer service to come. Is that right?
Yeah, that's
Okay,
correct.
thanks.
Thanks for that. Further questions or comments from commission members? Well, there don't appear to be any, and I think it might be sufficient to say that everyone is happy to see this project come to this stage. And I want to acknowledge all the work that has gone on by staff, PACTAC members and others. I've been fortunate to be able to attend some of the public engagement events and have seen staff working hard at those events to give members of the public as much information as possible and keep them well informed. So I think we're good to go on this. We are on receipt. There we go. Is there anyone opposed to receipt of this report? Okay, that is carried. And we have a recommendation that the Sewer Extension South Liquid Waste Management Plan Addendum Report be approved and submitted for provincial review. Further, the discussion of potential impacts to groundwater and local stream-based flows resulting from the diversion of water from electoral area aseptic fields to the regional sewer service be completed and submitted to the province during the review process for inclusion in the addendum report. If someone would like to move that, please. Moved by Cole Hamilton, second by McCollum. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor? Anyone opposed? That is carried unanimously. Thanks very much to staff and everyone else involved. And thank you to Andrew Gower for being with us today representing the PACTAC. We'll move on to item number 4, the site master plan finalization and phase 4 upgrades. And we have a report dated March 28th regarding the update to the Comox Valley Water Pollution Control Center. A motion for receipt, please. Moved by Grant, second by Swift, and over to staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Zoe Berkey, our senior engineering analyst, will be presenting this report to the commission.
Good afternoon through the CAO and the chair to the commission. In the summer of 2023, the Sewage Commission approved the proposed path forward for the completion of the Stage 3 LWMP report. And within that report, there was 4 pieces of work that were identified that were key and critical to completion of that Stage 3 LWMP. One of those pieces of work was the finalization of the site master plan and the detailed design of the phase 4 upgrades at the wastewater treatment plant. So in winter of 2024, we released the RFP for the site master plan and detailed design work, and the scope was developed with input from our process expert who we retained in the fall. The RFP and the scope of work includes 7 tasks that are intended to address 3 key goals. And those 3 key goals being development of a realistic and cost-effective site master plan, ensuring that the master planning work and design meets the ministry requirements for submittal of the Stage 3 LWMP report, and completion of the detailed design and tender package for the phase 4 upgrades. So the RFP closed in March, and we received 2 compliant proposals, and those proposals are both currently under evaluation. However, within the financial plan, a budget amendment is required to include an additional 2.8 million in 2024 for the engineering costs required for this work. Engineering costs were unfortunately not escalated as they should have been when we updated the capital cost estimate for the project to the 46 million that's in the current financial plan. I just do want to note that the 46 million construction cost estimate for the 4th phase of upgrades is still considered a Class D cost estimate, so a plus or minus 50%. And this cost estimate, as of this time, is a preliminary level estimate and used for long-term capital planning. As we progress through this work, these costs are anticipated to change, and we'll provide a budget update in late spring when the Class B cost estimate as part of this scope is complete. We are happy to answer any questions on this report that you may have.
Well, thanks very much for that, and we'll try not to be too terribly surprised when the costs go up. Questions or comments from commission members? It looks like you're off the hook today, so thanks very much, Zoe, for your concise and professional report. You pesky engineers are always wanting more money for things. Is there anyone opposed to receipt? That is carried, and we have a recommendation that the 2024 to 2028 financial plan and capital expenditure program for function 335 Comox Valley Sewage Service be amended by increasing engineering and design service expenditures for project number 1101, Comox Valley Water Pollution Control Center Phase 4 upgrades by $2,800,000 for finalization of the site master plan and Phase 4 detailed design to be funded from the Capital Works number 846 and DCC number 896 reserves. Someone move that, please. Moved by McCollum, seconded by Grant. Any discussion? Is there anyone opposed? That is carried. And we have one item left on our agenda before you all get to go home and tell your families that you just approved millions of dollars in expenditures today. We have item number 5, the conveyance project update, and we're going to hear about the holes in the road in Comox as the sewage conveyance project gets off the ground.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yes, Charlie Gore will be presenting an update here. We do intend on having a regular update to the Sewage Commission monthly to keep the commission informed on the progress of the project as it has now started. I think we wanted to let the first holes be put in the ground, and then we'll be able to pull that information together and present a dashboard of sorts for the commission to see the progress as we go along. So, but Charlie does have a PowerPoint today to share with the commission, and I'll turn it over to Charlie.
Thank you, CAO. Thank you, Chair. I'd like to raise concern over the Chair's comments about engineers, and I'd like to put that on record that it is not appreciated. You'll remind everyone that we've been coming in under budget these last, like to raise the budget and then coming in under the budget. So
fair point.
Into the notes.
I stand rebuked.
Into the notes, please. Okay. Screen sharing. Could you give me permission to share my screen? Okay, so exciting times. As noted, we're putting holes in roads. And so last Tuesday on April 2nd, we put our first pipe in the ground along Beaufort, just adjacent to the Jane Place intersection, which is a huge milestone for the project. And you can see anyone that's gone down to visit. I know our CAO likes to go for a walk there every evening and check on progress. But it really highlights the complexity of what we're trying to do through the town. We're digging 15 feet deep trenches down the middle of these roads and avoiding all the existing utilities. So if you get a chance, go for a walk there and really see the complexity of what our contractors are doing down there. And I think they're doing a fantastic job. It's always the start of these projects where there's a bit of teething as we learn some things about how we're going to operate. But I think we went off to a great start last week. And these are some of the photos from that first section of pipe that went in the ground. I wanted to include another photo here just to give everyone a further understanding of the complexity. So you can see here there's 2 excavators are used to lift these pipes into these trenches, and we have a mandate with the town to minimize the cutting of any existing utilities. That includes small water services to houses, sewer lines, existing culverts. So you can see here that this orange picker that they use to place and move around existing utilities and pick up again, move forward, drop the pipe, go up and around. So you can see that threading a needle here underneath water services. There's a gas service there. There's a sewer service. There's some major culverts for Golf Course Creek. And so the complexity about building a big pipe like this right through an old downtown can't be understated. And we've got a really good team on board with Waycor. You can also see in the trench there, the HDPE welding equipment, which has been custom fabricated for this job to minimize its width, which allows us to make the smallest hole possible in the road to impact the fewest amount of town utilities and keep our cost control really tight. And so, yeah, if you get a chance if you'd like to have a tour of site and you'd like to see some of this in person, reach out to me. No one's allowed to go onto the active work site without orientation, but they are allowing folks to still walk these roads. You know, there's people that pound the pavement on these streets every day, and our contractor is doing a great job of keeping that open as much as possible to give exposure while keeping people safe through the zones. And another item I wanted to highlight was the extent that the contractor is going to maintain access to homes. So they brought in at great expense this bridge to keep access to certain sides of the street at the end of the day when it's not possible to completely close up the trench. And so when you're hearing from residents, if there's any people that have concerns that they don't think that we're going far enough, I've never seen a bridge like this used on a pipe construction project. So I do want us to really get out there in support of our contractor. I think they are doing a lot to try to really maintain good relationships with our public as we go through with this project.
Excuse me, Charlie, when you say great expense, do you want to give us a bit of an estimate?
How much a bridge like this would cost? You're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars to fabricate a bridge like this. So I don't know if this one's rented or they've fabricated and purchased it themselves, but it's big.
Thank you.
And then in parallel with that, we have the design build project, which is moving along really well. So we are deep into the detailed design process with our design builder. This is a latest cross section of the 3D model for our Courtney pump station rebuild as we work with our engineers from our operations side, and we have our consultants representing us on all the details as we pick through the fine details before we start construction on that in June. One thing I did want to touch on, and it's a concern that we've heard from the public, and there's been some conversations with some of the folks around the table, is regarding air valve kiosks. So I wanted to give everyone a base understanding of what these are and how we got to where we are today, such that everyone has the information at hand if further concerns are raised. So what an air valve is in a continuous force main like this, at high points, small amounts of gas slowly accumulate. So the sewage that we're transporting, the bugs that are in there, they make small gases over time. And so those gases migrate to the high points in the pipe as it goes along our streets. And so if you have too much gas accumulating, it actually starts to impact the capacity of the pipe because that gas takes up cross-sectional area. And it sounds silly that a bit of air would reduce the capacity of the pipe, but that's what happens over time. And so you need an automatic system for removing that air. So we have these air valves, which using a differential pressure over a flange, they remove that gas over time to eliminate that air pocket. Now, in the old days, we would put all these down in a deep manhole and people wouldn't know about them, except for our operators who have to go down into those confined spaces. And operators across the country have been going into confined spaces, and I'm sure you're aware that there's been some real tragedies for regional districts and municipalities, even as recently as last year, with people dying in confined spaces. There was one at a ice rink, I think it was last year, and it's well documented that we're trying to minimize all confined spaces so our operators don't have to go into dangerous spaces. And so working really closely with the town of Comox staff, we, instead of bringing the whole thing above ground, which is what we wanted, we were able to move these isolation valves, which you can see in the middle here. Unfortunately, there's my cursor. Can you see it? Yeah, perfect. So we were able to put as much as infrastructure as we could below ground. This allows us to isolate the system and maintain it. And we can operate these from the surface using valve keys. But the actual air valve itself, we moved into a kiosk above ground, into the smallest kiosk we could design to minimize its impact on the public. So what you've got in the final design is a 5 foot high by 4 foot wide above ground kiosk. Now these are completely sealed metal boxes that this gray, keep losing my cursor, this little gray air valve, every now and then will have a little psst, and some air will be discharged down this pipe and back into the sewer system, the collection system. So you have an above ground piece of infrastructure that will look a lot like hydro kiosks that you see around municipalities already. But they do need to be placed at every high point along the line of the force main. And so we worked hard with the town of Comox to minimize those high points. But as you saw in my previous slide, there's only so deep you can go on. And so as our roads undulate with topography, we have to have some high points and low points along the route. And so unfortunately, as you can see here in this picture, which comes from our air valve design memo, which we went back and forth with the town of Comox staff trying to optimize, one of these has landed out the front of a residential home. And this is where we've heard the most concerns of our engagement on this. And part of that concern is an aesthetic concern that you can see this box from their house. Another is a perceived concern about odor risk from the sealed box. And the third is why this information has come so late in the process. So I wanted to address all of those three here in the meeting. So I talked a lot about the design process that we went back and forth with the staff to minimize our high points, which minimizes our air valves, but also to try to optimize the locations. You know, we have a little bit of flexibility where these things can go. We tried to move as many as we could into corners of parks or outside public buildings or hidden by hedges. But in some instances like this we didn't have a lot of flexibility. And then there was the timing of when these were confirmed. Now, because we've done a design build for the hydraulics of the system, the pump stations, but a detailed design for the pipe through the town, we had to wait until we had both a signed contract for each and then the hydraulic design in from the design builder before we could really confirm exactly where these air valves were going to go. And that's why it's come so late in the process. And as soon as we had these confirmed, we reached out to the different neighborhoods where these are going to be. But it was after our open house in January, February. And that raised some concerns about a potential transparency that we were trying to hide where these were going to go. And so I just wanted to get all that information to everyone around the table to make sure that as concerns are raised, that you have a bit of an understanding of the process that we went through and what these do and why they are where they are.
Charlie, did you want to comment on the odor risk?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So as I mentioned, these are fully sealed boxes and they discharge back into the municipal collection system. So there is no odor risk from these boxes. The odor that is discharged goes back into the same place that we flush our toilets and the manholes that feed our collection system. So there is no odor risk coming from these boxes. And it's discharged back into where all our other odorous smells go.
And we do have a question from Director Swift, if you're okay with that just now.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Charlie. I wanted to ask a question while we have this diagram up there. You said there is some possibility of moving it a little bit, and I'm wondering what the parameters of that are. I'm looking at that and going, well, maybe if it was closer to the utility pole, it wouldn't be quite so apparent. And then secondly, do you have any ability to sink that box even more? The valve box there?
So on the first one, we have moved it as close to that pole as possible. There are access panels on both sides of these, so we need to have the space for operators to work. And there's also DC Hydro requirements of minimum space off their infrastructure. So we have tried to move this as close to the pole as we can. With regards to the height, we have done everything we can to minimize the height of these pieces. And the town staff can attest to that because they've fought us tooth and nail on. I wanted these two isolation valves in this kiosk because we have to build, just to reduce it to 5 feet. It used to be 7 feet. We have to build a whole additional piece of infrastructure rather than just one above ground. We now need to build one below ground for the valves and one above ground. So we are reducing that height at cost to try and minimize that impact. One thing I didn't mention though, is we also have offered to the residents around these to wrap them in either a photo or something that minimizes their visual impact. And that needs to be approved by Town of Comox staff, but we are trying to work with the local residents to say, you know, you can see this outside your kitchen window. What do you want it to look like? Because we've done some great projects out at Oyster Bay where we've wrapped above ground kiosks in the forest. You don't even see them because you're wrapping them in a photo. And these days, the vinyl wraps are pretty phenomenal. So we can wrap this with a photo of that stone wall that you can see there. Or we can wrap it with a photo of grass that will blend it into the grass around it. We're open to that. And we're willing to bear the cost of the project to minimize that visual impact for neighbors. But we really have, and I'm very happy to share the memo that we worked with the town staff. We've picked apart every location, trying to find a better one. And these are the best locations we could come up with.
Charlie, we have a couple of other questions and we'll, before going back to Director Swift, Director Cole Hamilton.
I probably should have turned my light up. I was just going to ask, because when we spoke yesterday, Charlie, you were talking about that wrapping and the way you could customize it. And I think it's amazing how the various like hydro utility boxes we all see in our communities start to disappear as they're, you know, camouflaged by some sort of wrapping. So anyway, I wanted to bring that up, but you did yourself, and I'll just turn off my light.
Thanks for that. And Director Kerr.
Thanks, and thanks, Charlie, for the explanations. My question was also about the wrap, so thanks for that. But secondarily, I'm wondering, could it be moved closer to the wall? Like if the access panels could be on, you know, the longitudinal aspect, and then if it was closer to the wall, you wouldn't see as much of it.
I'd have to look at the property lines and things. Obviously, we're building these on public land, which is the road right of way. So I'd have to look at where that property line finishes. But there's also you can see only a cross section of it, but there's a foundation here, and the digging for the foundation, the room to build it. You know, our mandate is to not impact private land here. So sometimes these things have to be offset just for the practicalities of building them as well. We are very open to optimizing as much as we can where these go once we get out in the field and hydro back. But when you look at the plans on these, there's a whole bunch of utilities running around here that we're avoiding as well. There's storm lines, there's hydro lines, there's comm lines in the ground. So there's a lot that we don't see when we walk a street and say, hey, why didn't they put it there? And so we are working through those with the residents. When they come up with concerns, we can show them the detailed plans and the memos and say, this is how we arrived. And you're never going to agree with the memo if you're the house here, why it shouldn't have gone across the street. But unfortunately, we're not going to play the game of one resident versus the other.
Thanks for that. Director Grant.
I'm just wondering could you, if you chose to, could you put some small shrubs around it or trees or something rather than wrap it? Or could you have somebody come and paint it? Or like, does the homeowner have any other options other than just wrapping it?
Painting, yes. Shrubs, unfortunately, they block the access. We need access on 3 sides for
Okay.
our personnel to get in and around it. Because these pieces of equipment are the highest touch piece on the force main just to maintain them.
Yeah.
So our operators will be out monthly closing these valves and checking operation and things.
Okay, thank you.
And Director Swift.
Thank you. So these are serviced monthly, you say?
Correct.
Yeah, but there's nothing to it in terms of impact to the neighborhood.
No.
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 And it sounds like you've really put a lot of thought into where this box could go, but could it go further west, closer to the driveway? Right where it's sitting right now, it just looks like it's in the middle.
Yeah.
And
Again,
I don't know how accurate that is, but
yeah, it's a snapshot from but there unfortunately isn't space between the driveway and the hydro pole with setbacks and things. And we often need to, you start putting things at driveways, you start to create safety hazards because then people can't see oncoming traffic and pedestrians and things. So I am very happy to share the memo that we went back and forth with town staff about why each location was selected and why different areas around it were not seen as good or they weren't possible. But yeah, I think it's hard to see from a picture all the other views and plans and other utilities.
Thank you, Director Grant.
So how many of these would we have in front of residences? I guess throughout the length of the pipe, I guess would be the question, because it's going to come up every time.
Yeah, within the town, there's 2 or 3. This is by far the worst one. So I've chosen the worst one for the picture today. It's also the one that we've heard the only concerns from residents on. But with regards to in front of private residences, like single family homes, I believe there's 2. And then there's another 2 at multifamily homes, which are able to be hidden a little bit more because they have more larger infrastructure. And then there's 6 throughout the town. So I think it's 2 single family homes. 1 is well hidden by a hedge. This one, unfortunately, is not fully hidden. 2 multifamily homes and then 2 public spaces.
Charlie, thanks for all those very thorough responses, and feel free to move on to your remaining slides.
I just have one more, and it's just upcoming milestones. So we're going to continue construction on Beaufort, and we'll be coming around the corner into Stewart later this month. May we'll start seeing the same construction moving up Stewart, but we'll also have the groundbreaking event at Courtney Pump Station. You will have all seen an invite, or maybe not yet, come in through your email today. And you'll also see to next month's Sewage Commission the phase 2 traffic management plan. So that we're working really hard on, and that's for the 2025 work, for the work along Comox Avenue, Comox Road, and that big unidirectional traffic management plan. And then in June, the project's really going to heat up. So we're going to have construction at Courtney Pump Station. You'll have construction along Balmoral, and you'll also have construction in the Area B on Lazo Brent area starting. And we'll be going out and engaging with the public on that phase 2 traffic management plan. So a lot's coming up. Yeah, things are looking great. We've got a long way to go, but I think we've had a really good start to the project, and the public's been great. Our contractors are really coming to the table, so we're really optimistic.
I'm just wondering if you or James want to say anything more about the groundbreaking event. This is obviously going to be a big deal, an opportunity for the community to acknowledge this project, and a lot of work going into it, I'm sure.
Yeah, it comes on the back of the announcement of the $10 million grant that we got for the Courtney Pump Station through the Climate Change Resiliency program. And so the feds in the province are focusing it on the Courtney Pump Station because that's what they're coming to the table with funding. But we're really opening the scope of that and saying, this is part of this greater program of the Courtney Pumps, the conveyance project. and we want to celebrate all of the different components of that. Our contractor working within the town, our different consultants, and all the hard work that we're doing with our First Nation. We want to celebrate all those different stakeholders at this event. So it is going to be a big one for us, and it'll be fantastic to be standing out there on the ground before the ground improvement rigs come in a couple of weeks later to start setting up. So last chance to stand around as it's bare ground.
Great news, thanks. Do we have any further questions or comments from commission members? Director Swift.
Thank you. I would just like to make the comment that I live about 4 or 5 doors down from where this construction is going on at this time. And it's been great. You know, the traffic people have been wonderful. They've been very engaging. I've taken my 3-year-old grandson down there every day, and he loves the diggers digging and the pipes, and the site is left immaculate every night. So I'm going to be sorry to see it go.
I really appreciate that. And that actually goes a long way. And there's a lot of people putting a lot of effort out there. And don't worry, they will be back at the end of summer because there's some pretty big chambers going in just outside your house. So there's some exciting things coming back in September.
Thanks very much for those comments, Director Swift. That really adds a human touch to the whole discussion. Charlie, do you want to comment on this, what we are seeing in this last slide?
Yeah, so this is an artist rendering of what we're going to see as our Courtney pump station from the road. So there's a lot of hidden infrastructure behind it, but from the road, you're going to see a 2-story building with hopefully some great First Nation artwork. We're still in the stages of design of fine tuning these things. But this is what is coming out of the 60% design of the pump station and what it's going to look like.
And I see a porch there. We're not incorporating housing into that, given our needs in the community right now, I take it.
No, this is my personal barbecue veranda. Nice view of the farmland. No, there's a emergency access out of our electrical rooms.
Great. All right. My sincere compliments to all the engineers and other staff involved in this great work. Thank you.
Can I just say one thing to summarize there as well, Chair? I just want to thank the commission for inquiring into the project and asking some of these questions of a fairly detailed nature, and to Charlie and the whole team for being able to provide these responses. And I think it's just indicative of the level of work going in behind the scenes to work with members of the public and work with those who are impacted. There's such a ton of complexity on a project like this, like we've seen today, but having these discussions in a transparent fashion, open fashion, I think helps to just share more of that information more broadly. And so I encourage commission members, as you are approached on the street or in the grocery store, please do refer those questions to the conveyance team. We have a team that does support this, or come through me or Charlie. We're certainly wanting to share the information that we can and keep this an open dialogue going forward. So I appreciate the commission members' participation in the discussion today, but also certainly Charlie and the team around Charlie to support the project.
Thanks very much for those comments and for your management of the whole process. Do we need a motion on this? I don't think we do. All right. So thanks very much, everyone, for your participation today. We've come to the end of our session. We'll take a motion for termination. All in favor?